Tonight, we are blessed to be with our dear guest, Retired Major Wikpora. It's a pleasure to have you again. We've been missing you as a television and also the viewers for the, kind of input you do give into these programs, analyzing the policies that can enable our economic transformation. Kindly with the viewers.
Good evening, viewers. Nice to be with you again.
Thank you. Oh, again, we are with the Honorable Member of Parliament for Chitubu Municipality. He's energetic enough that he cannot miss today, and Wednesday, please, sir, always make sure that the viewers are now used of the information you share with them calmly, but with serious points that just go deep inside. And it's a good always take home to have you here for our Wednesday program of the point to discuss the economic policies. You're welcome with the viewers.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother, Dr. Joseph, my senior, Paula Witch, the viewers. I want to thank the management of Smart 24 TV for the wonderful program they always bring to us, the country.
Doctor, for the record, I know Honorable many years back when he was still guild president in Makere.
Yes, sir.
And he once called me and we kept on interacting when he was the president in Makere. And I think our collaboration made a lot of sense. If you choose to use the word mentor, I think there it was, but I choose to use the word we shared a lot of experiences. And since I was already in the UN at that time, I had lots of experience. So we have known each other for a long time.
That's great, and as you were saying before.
And we did a lot of mentorship for the young students as well.
That's great.
I remember when we opened, was it Pan-Africa?
Yes.
We used to have a lot of political debates at Cisco.
Yes.
We would interact a lot, and as a UN envoy would give us a lot of critical information. I'm just actually very proud to have my senior.
So I believe you encourage others and yourself, you cannot complain on a matter where they say that you are the future leader, so now you are the leader. Because at first he was, and now already you are ready to go. And I believe the kind of conduct, your leadership skills and so forth, your progress, by having an association with him, who doubles as a lawyer, who doubles as a civil servant in the military profession, and again in the politics of this country as a director of NRM External Affairs. We do believe you gained much, and we continue to really be proud to have you here, so that we are able to see this transition of transfer of knowledge, especially, which is very important. Our topical discussion tonight, dear viewers, we are looking on a matter that has been coming over and over again from time to time, and it is a topic entitled the National Debt Management, Regaining Economic Independence as a country, Uganda, and also looking at having this question in mind: how can Uganda be effective in debt management and fiscal policies for economic sustainability? Dear viewers and listeners, together with our guests, the concern that we bring into this discussion refers to the very, a few days which will be dealing with the independence of Uganda. And beyond that, we do believe that independence is not only looking at the celebration of how we were ruled by the colonialists, and now we are maybe saying we are independent, but we can be in that way where we are saying we are independent, but we have a lot that either is causing us to rely on these whom we refer as colonialists. Of course, we are in a global community, we cannot do it alone, but again, it defeats us when we find either we are doing much more of begging those whom we say no, we can manage ourselves. It becomes paradoxical when you've come from the slavery of someone who wanted either to be your master, and you say, now I'm able to manage my affairs, but every other day you find you got the checklist, you find that you economically rely on that very individual or an organization. It remains a serious debt to anybody, either at an individual level, even at a national level, as we handle this matter. It's so, again, to our knowledge, that our debt management level, especially looking at the escalated rate that has reached to over 73 trillion shillings, which we are indebted as a country to clear. And one says, that is for those who are using the money, but this has an implication on our economy. And at an individual level, when we go to the GDP and compare to the national debt, all they do leave a question. If there is no answer, that means we cannot have sustainability. So we come here not to lament, but to go into the in-depth discussion on how can we manage the debt that we acquire. How can we minimize the chances of obtaining more debts? Because none of us want to remain a beggar. Because in most cases it is believed that the one who borrows you are a debtor, you are a slave to your master who borrows you, who lends to you. And having said that, we like to have a country which is economically independent. And independent in a sense that we can manage our economic issues at any point they rise up to us without having much more excuses with external forces. Ukraine war, it can come, but there are countries which know how to maintain that and they stabilize it and they move forward. COVID can come as we were facing it, but in a prepared country to manage, there are those countries which are ready to move even when such occurrences happen. Our dear guest will be referring to a number of other occurrences or events that have evolved from time to time in relation to our economic reforms. It's a pleasure to have you, and I would like to start with you, dear our Afande, and at the same time a lawyer, for into this discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think to have this discussion in context, we better look at debt itself as a category or as a phenomenon. Mm-hmm. If you take, say, at a household level, there are things that you want to buy for in the household, food, clothing, school fees, health, and all these things. You have them for your welfare. But you find that you don't have enough money, so you end up borrowing. So it is the same thing with a country. The difference between a country and a household is that a country has two sources of borrowing. You borrow from external, which you have made emphasis on, but there's also a lot of internal borrowing. But also, coupled with direct borrowing is the fact that there are goods and services that a country can consume, maybe not as an agreed debt, but they thought they would pay and they didn't pay. All these accumulate to debt. For example, some people have taken contracts of building schools or building roads or building hospitals with the presumption that the government, which in this case say Attorney General, is going to pay through a particular ministry, and those are not paid. All those figures build up to make a national debt. So this is what causes a national debt. But of course, the biggest part is that we have big infrastructural matters or big runnings that a country cannot run. It ends up borrowing. So in percentage form, the biggest borrowing, in most cases, end up to be external borrowing. And then we have a debt. Historically, it has occurred that once upon a time, there was so much debt that there was a negotiation with the debt owners, the other lending organizations, and say, write it off. And it was a collective global or a collective effort, and it was written off. But it built up again. So internally, we have systems to address this. For example, in the Ministry of Finance, there's a debt department. Ordinarily, it may not appear in the eyes of the people that even when we read our annual budget every year, a big percent of this money is to pay these debts because it's an agreement. So inside that agreement, especially for external, you end up saying, this is the method of payment. In most cases, embedded into the annual budget because it said you are going to pay us every year, and that's why they keep warning that it's a common joke and a warning that when we borrow today, it's our grandchildren who will pay, our grandchildren, because some payment are so long term that our generation may not pay, but somebody else will pay. So this is a phenomenon of debt, which I thought that it is good for us to lay it on the table so that the ordinary viewers there can understand and appreciate. As I summarize, you look at it like a household, but look at the country as it is. And also what I could mention is that there is, even in the country, there's a security system that is sort of like national, in the treasury bonds and all that. If you give it out and people are using it, it's also a kind of a debt system. So a debt is such a complex thing. Ordinarily, it's not healthy for an economy. But let me also say that even around the world, United States federal government, for example, has a debt of $20 trillion.
22 trillion.
And yet, and this comprises that I've explained. Okay. And this is 105% of their GDP by second quarter of 2020. So it's not only Uganda which has this. US has 20 trillion, which is 105% of their GDP. Now, you find US income has only ballooned by 30% in the past 12 years. They have increased 30% of their income. And yet the debt has increased by 400%. You can see the dilemma. So all this come up to the fact that many countries around the world, including USA, has a debt problem. But that's not to say we shield off ourselves because other countries have. It's a sickness that needs to be managed.
Thank you so much. I'll be coming back to you. My concern will be the management, because as you refer to the United States of America, recently we're discussing on our progress in oil exploration, the petroleum, this what the good progressive work that's being done. And we compared to what is happening in the USA, and I found out that United States is the leading oil petroleum producer. They do deal in that, and they are at the top. And around what they earn out of petroleum, it was 12 trillion US dollars every year. So now that takes me back, as I'm welcoming the Honorable, to the level of what you consume if you take a debt, the ability to pay. And that's the only difference we have with America, in my observation. You'll be coming back into that, and we see how can we manage, how America manages, how we manage, of course, is a bit different, and we need to improve. Honorable, it's a pleasure to have you again. My question to you goes to what happened recently, that we're able to have information from Parliament, cycle there, relating to the presentation of the Minister of Finance and Planning, where it was reportedly brought to your knowledge that we have over 25 trillion shillings, which were borrowed money but not yet utilized. And ability to utilize. But leaving that aside, can they bring in your opinion, analytical opinion into this?
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother, Dr. Joseph, and my senior Afande. I want to begin by saying that our level of debt is too high as a country in Uganda. My senior has given a very elaborate information. He talked of a comparison of the debts of America, but of course, when you look at the GDP, per annum, that is a simple money for them. In Uganda, at the moment, we have debts of 73 trillion. Our budget is 44 trillion. If you look at it in the percentage, you find that our debt is more than what we are capable of using by 168%. For US, it's 100 by 100.
103.
Again, you look at these of debts in comparison to the country GDP. You also look at what is the capacity of the country in consumption of that debt and in the production level. Japan equally has debts, but where do they put the money they borrow? That is a big question. What is the level of their production? It's another big question. Japan, most of the vehicles we have in Uganda here comes from Japan. Their level of intake may be high in terms of debts, but of course they borrow to invest wisely. I think the biggest problem you have in the country, the biggest problem you have in Uganda, is the challenge of borrowing money, corruption, investing in areas that does not bring back the money. That's a big problem that we have. Now, if we could limit those kind of wasteful expenditures and wrong allocation of funds in projects, we would be able to say that even if we borrow a big amount of money from the international community, we are capable of paying back. On record, Dr. Joseph,
Yes, sir.
Uganda attempted to pay back debts in 1982. Since then, our record is bad.
1982.
1982. That was the last period of time where we were debt free. And since 1982 up to now, we have been, after 1982, we have been in debts. Though the level was not too high, like in the current situation that we have in the country. When you talk about the national debt management, it relates closely to the fiscal policy, the fiscal policies.
Exactly.
Now, what does the government has to do with the fiscal policies? In fiscal policies is basically looking at managing your resources correctly and also using taxation wisely, having good collection of taxes wisely, having strong laws that governs the management of the economy. First of all, on usage of resources that you have, the budgetary line that you give, directing your budget on the right sector that can create economic growth. That is the fiscal policy.
Honorable,
Now,
I do suggest that we go for a break, and you are bringing into something which is so central as we also look at the fiscal policies. Make sure, please, that package you don't take it back home. And see you in the next few minutes after the commercial break. It's a good evening. You cannot miss this talk show. We must manage our debt at even individual level and as a country. Thank you. And the fiscal policies.